Our means of communication are more extensive than ever. The push of a button puts us in touch with hundreds or even thousands of people all over the globe. We not only communicate in text, but increasingly in images too. Emojis are now used by 2.9 billion people. 212 countries use the emoji keyboard. If you were to call emojis a language, it would now be the single most used language in the world. We digitally kiss and smile, but also show our sadness or express our support.
And I think we can best describe emoji as the body language of the digital age.
It is not just an emoji, it is an icon for a group of people who are finding their voice.
I mean, if you believe emoji is an emerging world language, it shouldn't be decided upon by a bunch of predominantly white, predominantly male, predominantly American text encoding engineers in California.
It seems innocent, almost trivial even, but there's a whole world behind these emojis that is mostly unknown to the public. Where do emojis come from? Who decides what icons we use universally? Is this just the beginning? The prehistoric age of a new form of communication? Are these emojis the cave paintings of the digital era? This is Backlight. Welcome to the world behind your keyboard.
Lisa, can you tell us where we're walking?
Yes, so we are headed now. We're to the elevators up to the meeting room where we will join the plenary, the Unicode Technical Committee plenary meeting. And actually, we will join the people who have been analyzing emoji feedback.
And what kind of building are we actually in?
We're in a building on the Microsoft campus. So which floor are we to? We meet once every 3 months for 4 to 5 days, and our different member companies share hosting. So this is Microsoft's turn.
The Unicode Consortium controls our emoji keyboards. For almost every phone and computer platform, it is they who decide what emojis can be used. Lisa Moore and 19 other committee members act as a kind of supreme court of our digital traffic, discussing what icons will be added to our emoji keyboards, the so-called Emoji Committee.
So now we're going into the Unicode Technical Committee.
But the families that we do have are like way low in the frequency list. And when we have 200 different variations of each combination, then we're going to basically divide up into 200s.
Yeah. So Mark, I think we need to end the discussion now.
Oh yeah, no.
We will now start the closed session of the meeting. So, bye.
Behind this closed door, major issues are decided. How many skin colours should be represented in the emoji keyboard? Will menstruation get its own icon? Does Kurdistan deserve its own flag in the world of emojis?
Flags have been a challenge for us. They've been a challenging area for us to figure out how to add them because flags are so closely associated with self-identity, political identity, all kinds of movements around the world have their own flags. So there are many associations with flags. And we wanted to be careful about how we represented stuff because it's explosive. You know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden you have millions of flags, and we can't quite go there. And sometimes it's politically very challenging also. Do you really want to take sides in a big political drama? I mean, we would prefer not to.
Would you prefer to please everyone and give everyone the emoji that they wanted?
No, because I think you still have to use judgment. You know, there's still a judgment case that comes into that because often people, I mean, people will ask for stuff that it could be very, very offensive to a wide part of the world. Do we really want to add that?
Since the Emoji Committee acquired responsibility over the emoji keyboard, which was originally Japanese, they started working on a more varied and better representation of society. And so the committee added more women's professions, more skin colours, a hijab emoji, and a rainbow flag emoji. One committee that decides which emojis we're allowed to use, on every device and every platform. Why does this Unicode consortium, 20 people, most of whom are white males, get to decide all that?
The Unicode Consortium has been around since the early 1990s. It's an industry organization that is responsible for the standard way that all computers and all phones, everything that's electronic, deals with text. So the writing system for English, for Dutch, for German, for Chinese, for Japanese, for esoteric languages, all goes through Unicode.
So should we see it as sort of the plumbers of the internet?
Calling it the plumbers is actually probably not that inaccurate. It's deep down. If you think of a computer system as having layers, users interface up here, but there are many, many, many layers, and Unicode does sit very close to practically the bottom. Every operating system ultimately is written in a programming language. That programming language uses text. That text is codified using Unicode. So it really does lie at the foundation of this entire digital universe that we've created. You may remember years ago, you got a text message and there would be a little empty box. You know, like, what's that? And the answer is exactly. The computer doesn't know what that is. It received a code it didn't know how to interpret. And so your friend may have sent you a smiley face, but all you got was an empty box. So Unicode decided, okay, we'll take on the job of standardizing emoji. But there's a catch. Well, if you want to encode Mongolian, what do? You get on a plane, you go to Mongolia, and you meet with the people who know how to write the language. There's experts that you can consult, and then you're not making any decision. All you're deciding is what codes to assign to a character set that already exists. But that's not the case with emoji. There is no dictionary, there's no reference, there's no set of experts. So we had to develop a different process for standardizing emoji, and we opted one that was open to the public.
Greg Welch is on the Unicode board for Intel. The other board members are also representatives of the big tech businesses like Apple, Google, Huawei, Facebook, and Microsoft. Companies that are normally competitors now gather around the table together for Unicode. Their job is to make sure all devices around the world can communicate with each other in codes mutually agreed upon, and thus also emojis. Keith Winstein is a computer scientist at Stanford University. One of his interests is the codes behind the colourful icons.
This is the first edition of Unicode, 1990. There it is, first edition. Red heart is there, 1990. And the smiley face is also here, I think. The Unicode Consortium is it's essentially it's a coalition of the world's biggest technology companies. The major influences are Apple and Google and companies like that. And they have been publishing this book, since 1990, the Unicode standard. And it's a way to represent all the written languages of the world in one numeric system. So they have decided that, A is 65 and B is 66, and an E with an acute accent is number 233, and a swastika, that has significance in India, and also for the Nazis is number 4053, and the recycling symbol is number 9851, and the emoji pumpkin is number 127,875. So it's a big list of all the characters from the world's languages, and they give a number to each one. And that's what they do, and they publish it in these books, and you can just see that A is 65, B is 66, C is 67. So this consortium it's a coalition of large companies that get together and they agree on the number that's going to correspond to every letter and every character in all the world's languages.
Unicode makes sure that the emojis are universal. All over the world, people use the exact same pictograms. Does this mean we're developing a new universal language across all borders and cultural differences?
So 92% of the world's internet users, 3.2 billion people, so 92% of 3.2 billion are regularly using emojis. That is powerful. It's more powerful in terms of its reach than English, which is purportedly the global lingua franca in linguistic terms. The reach of English is probably around 1.5 billion people. Emoji reaches far more than that.
Vivian Evans sees emojis as our digital body language. It's the start of a revolution for our communication, allowing us to get better and better at translating our emotions online.
The allegation that emoji is dumbing down communication fundamentally misrepresents the way communication works and is a form of, to my mind, cultural elitism. Emoji is not dumbing down communication, it's enhancing digital communication, and it's simply replicating what we already do in spoken face-to-face interaction via tone of voice, gestures and body language. Most people think, so the average person on the street, without any offence meant at all, assumes that language is the mover and the shaker in the world of communication and meaning, but it's only one type of information. Body language is key. My face, the tone of voice to change the meaning of the words. We do this all the time, in Dutch, in English, in Swahili. It doesn't matter a jot which language it happens to be. The ability to do that in the digital medium, it was missing until the advent in 2011, when Apple rolled out their emoji keyboard as standard. It was missing in the digital sphere. So now we have that ability to patch up and make our digital communication as effective as everyday spoken interaction. Emoji is the body language of the digital age.
More than 7 billion emojis are sent every day. Instagram states that more than half of the communication on its platform consists solely of emojis, and 72% of young people find it easier to express their feelings in emojis than in words. The emoji keyboard now has 3,000 emojis. But is that enough?
So, here's the tea. The trans flag is one of the most requested emojis. But what are we given? A lobster, some bricks, and a whole ton of bullshit.
I think I just got very annoyed that I had no way of saying, of celebrate, of sort of saying trans pride, or the Trans Day of Remembrance, or we are here, or, I had no sort of little symbol. I wanted to put a kind of love heart at the end of everything. I could put a rainbow of hearts, I can put a rainbow, and I can put a rainbow flag, all of which are the same thing. They're all ways of representing the fact that I'm queer, and very proud of that. But I had no way of representing that I'm trans and very proud of that.
For 4 years, Taya Uglow has been trying to get the transgender flag on the keyboard. And for 4 years, her proposal has been rejected by Unicode. This year, she will submit it again.
Yeah, it's really important for me. It's been really important for me for 3 or 4 years. I can't understate how important that that dictionary is, that ability to communicate between languages using little symbols, and it's so prevalent, it's so important. So to not be able to say, to not be able to represent myself at all my friends, or my community, to have no way of saying this is me, it's very frustrating. And I think it's important to understand that whilst these things seem very silly and little and trivial, and in a way they are, it's an enormous responsibility to be making those decisions and creating this language.
Unicode adds no more than about 60 new emojis per year. Once an emoji has been added, it can never be removed. Although Unicode reigns supreme over the keyboard, they call themselves a democratic consortium because they are open to the voice of the people.
They're picking a list of pictures that they think are the important concepts in humanity, and they've been given a limit of 60 or 70 new ones a year. And that limit comes from the marketing department of Apple Computer. You know, one of the world's biggest corporations has decided how many concepts they're going to allow to be added per year. And these people are not experts in the human experience. You know, somebody proposed there should be a brontosaurus emoji. You know, brontosaurus, the dinosaur. And this committee had to decide, you know, is brontosaurus a real species, or is it the same thing as apatosaurus? But they don't know, you know, nobody knows. No committee is qualified to make those kinds of decisions. Someone proposed an emoji to represent the period, you know, menstruation. And the committee had to decide, you know, is this a sufficiently important concept? You know, is menstruation important enough that it deserves one of the 60 new pictograms that we will create this year? I mean, no committee of people sitting in California should be making these judgments for the world. And the question of what concepts are given approval by this International Standards Committee. I mean, the Unicode standard is a standard of the International Organization for Standardization. So telling people that, you know, Tyrannosaurus rex will be one in this list and menstruation will not be, I think there is some meaning to this decision of giving some concepts a status and other concepts not.
And why?
Well, I think the decision of which pictures are on our cell phone keyboards matters to a lot of people. You know, hundreds of millions of people use cell phones to communicate, and they you know, for better or for worse, they use these emoji to express their thoughts and their emotions. And so the question of who can choose which thoughts are most readily accessible is an important question.
Please join me in telling Unicode that we want an afro emoji.
Together, we're 70,000 people who need a whiskey emoji. And you're the only ones who can make it happen. It's up to you now, Unicode. You're a democratic consortium and the people have spoken.
So let's get an official safe sex emoji on every single phone out there.
Coming to a keyboard near you soon.
Lots of people fight for recognition in emoji land, and thus there are many, many different emoji lobbies going on all over the world. Currently, one of the strongest lobbies is for the white wine emoji. White wine producers in California are not amused by the fact there is only a red wine emoji. Red wine is really not the same thing as white wine.
So welcome to Kendall Jackson. This is our tasting room, all things wine. Our vineyards are out here, and this is where people really get a glimpse into what makes Kendall Jackson a California winery. Come on this way. So this is where people get to try our lovely wines, many of them which are Chardonnay, white wine of course, and here's our lovely 6-foot bottle Chardonnay. And we do have some fun with the white wine emoji. We have some shirts and little informational postcards. Because I think it's pretty exciting for folks here in wine country to show that we're actually campaigning for the white wine emoji. We see a lot on social media channels that people just feel like it's either incorrectly They're not allowed to communicate correctly if they're having a glass of white wine or they want to meet up with a girlfriend for white wine at the pool, or their favorite varietal is Chardonnay, then they cannot communicate correctly. That it is a sort of a lie in using the red wine emoji.
The 13 languages that are used predominantly around the world all have a way to say white wine, but the fastest growing language right now in the world is the language of emoji, and it's missing that symbol.
I think you can open with that and then go into a fact. Since 6000 BC, wine has played a critical role for humanity.
Yep. Give it and share it for those closest to us. Wine has a deep spiritual significance that no other food or drink possesses. It is embracing life. And today we are here to talk about how the white wine emoji can help the global wine community at large and white wine lovers help to embrace life.
Ooh, I like the emotion.
There's 6 different boats. There appear to be 3 different, what are those things called? 3 different cable cars. And 3 different types of tram. And 4 different types of train. Every year, like every March, lots of emojis are released and you go, oh, okay. So we have an aubergine and a courgette now, but no trans flag, or we have a new kind of tractor. So really, if Unicode wanted to come back and say no, there shouldn't be any more representation, it would be like saying, oh, well, there are not enough of us to be represented. In other words, we're so small, us many millions, that we don't exist. When we cease to matter, we don't need a word to describe us. And that is erasure in every single definition. To erase a minority from existence, the easiest way to do that is to remove them from your language. And if they don't even exist in the language to begin with, then it is a challenge for them.
If emojis are such an important way of communicating, how do you decide what you can and can't express with them? Are there enough drinkers of white wine to dedicate an emoji to it? And when only relatively few people insist on a transgender flag emoji, but to them it is vitally important, what do you do then? How do you decide?
The simple answer to how you decide is you get a diverse set of people discussing it. So the emoji subcommittee people, has linguists, it has designers, and it has software developers, engineers. It's technically challenging.
It's interesting because you call it technically challenging, but to me, it's also ethically challenging.
Yes, it's ethically challenging because, no matter, human cognition is by definition biased, and it's impossible for individuals not to bring their own bias, their own life experience to any discussion.
But does Unicode even want the power to decide on the LGBT flag is added and the transgender flag is maybe not added?
It is not I don't think of it as power. It's voluntary, so it doesn't have power. It's not by fiat. And this is something that people don't understand, particularly people from Europe, okay? It's voluntary. If the market doesn't reward its use, people will stop supporting it.
Unfortunately, Unicode, while it is a non-profit organisation, it is populated by representatives of for-profit organisations such as Apple, such as Hawaii, such as Google, such as Microsoft. And those organisations and the representatives do answer to shareholders. So they have an economic vested interest in emoji, ultimately. So I think there is an onus on them and a responsibility, given that this is a powerful form of communication, to engage with these kinds of issues and the issue of where we draw the line to avoid potential censorship. I think that's important.
You know, some people have said, well, you know, Unicode is censoring people. It's like, no, we're not. You know, in fact, if anything, you know, more people on the planet have the ability to say more things to more people than ever before in human history. In my mind, it's somebody who accuses Unicode of engaging in censorship doesn't know what the word censorship means.
In 2016, Apple changed the rendition in their operating system of the gun emoji from a gun to a water pistol. This poses problematic questions, I think, because in effect, what is going on is that Apple, who has shareholders and doesn't want to be associated, presumably, with the gun crime, is restricting what users of the Apple operating system are able to use emoji to convey. In 2018, the other main providers followed suit. So now it's nigh on impossible to send a gun emoji. It's a water pistol across the board, pretty much. So the questions are, is this putting us on a slippery slope towards censorship?
But it is true that, if when you buy this pen, they don't tell you what you're allowed to write with it. In fact, I have no idea what the Quartet company's opinion is on gun control. But when you buy the cell phone from Apple, they really do try and nudge you in a direction of not using a gun, bullet pistol. You have to use a water pistol. And even your old messages where you tried to use a bullet pistol now get silently modified to use a water pistol. So, the pen makers of today are influencing what we do with our products, the products we bought from them, to a much greater degree than the pen makers of 100 years ago. I don't know that the Quartet company that made this pen even thinks it's appropriate to voice an opinion on what we should be writing with my pen. I bought this pen. So there's a committee to decide on the Dutch language, and there's people there from the Netherlands, there's people there from Belgium, I think there's people there from, Suriname. So they're all together and they decide what should be in the Dutch language. And for France, they have a committee. There's the Académie Française, and it's learned people, and they decide what should be in the French language and which words should go in the French dictionaries. But these committees do not have the force of law. If the Académie Française decides that, we don't think that the word potato should be in our dictionary, people are still allowed to use the word, patate, pomme de terre, in French. It doesn't stop you from using the word. But if you think about what the Unicode committee does and what the emoji subcommittee does, if they don't recommend that a certain concept be expressible in emoji, it doesn't appear on the emoji keyboard for an iOS device or an Android device. And it doesn't appear in the emoji rendering fonts. And so for the systems that are restricted to Unicode, like SMS, iMessage, people cannot use pictograms to express those concepts. So it's like they have the world's most powerful dictionary. It's a power that the French Academy never dreamed of having. And that's just a bad system. I mean, if you believe emoji is an emerging world language, it shouldn't be decided upon by a bunch of predominantly white, predominantly male, predominantly American text encoding engineers in California. It's just not a good way to run a language.
So I'm going to tell the story of how I became an emoji activist. In 2015, I was texting with my friend, and I texted her a photo of these dumplings I made, and she's like, yum, 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 knife and fork, knife and fork, knife and fork, and then she's like, oh, Apple doesn't have a dumpling emoji. And I was like, And I was like, Jesus, how is there no dumpling emoji? Right? That's just really strange because, dumplings are sort of this universal food, very common around the world. Emoji are very common. They're kind of universal. So 2 universal things, no dumpling emoji. And I was like, dude, whatever system in place is broken. You find out that it's controlled by this organization called Unicode, and it was all these large US multinational tech companies like IBM, Oracle, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook,
making these decisions around emoji. And I just felt like this is wrong.
After initiating the dumpling emoji, Jennifer 8 Lee decided to take action against the emoji system. She found a way to sit at the table where the new emojis are discussed.
And it costs like $18,000 a year to be a full voting member of Unicode, which these companies were. But there's like a little tiny loophole, which is you can be a non-voting member for $75. So I just like literally signed up on the website with my credit card, $75, and that adds you to the mailing list, and it gives you the right to go to the meetings. And so I just RSVP'd, and I don't know what I was thinking. I think I was like maybe be a little bit like a little Congress, lots, hundreds of people inside an auditorium, deliberative, kind of like in a parliament or whatnot. That's not what I found. I mean, I showed up at Apple, and you walk in, and it's a conference room of like maybe 20 people, and mostly older, mostly white, mostly engineers. But they were super nice. They were like, what brings you here? We're so happy to see you. Tell us about yourself. And it totally had the vibe of like showing up at a new church, lots of nice old white people. And so I, just like sat in on the meeting and was like completely fascinated with, this is back in 2015, the sort of deliberations that they had around like emoji, right? It's like milk. Should it be a glass of milk? Should it be a carton of milk? Should it be, a bottle of milk? Because cartons are not universal, right? And glass is not universal. So what do you do? So I watched them debate, and it's mostly engineers, mostly 60s. I was like, oh, this is not right. I'm going to bring the voice of the people to issues of emojis.
Hello? Yeah. Yeah, it's a wine delivery.
The White Wine Lobby has flown out to Seattle, where the important meeting is held about the new emojis.
It's nice that we can get wine delivered.
They advocate white wine and hope to persuade a positive decision.
We're in Seattle, or Bellevue, Washington, close to Seattle, Washington, next to Microsoft's campus where the vote's actually happening. So we're close to the vote, but though we won't know much, we're getting little text updates. And then at the mixer tonight, we're hopeful to bring some wines as gracious guests and maybe learn a little bit more, but I think today's the day. Obviously, there's no cameras can go into the vote, so we have actually released some courtroom sketches of our lovely white wine emoji going up in front of the Unicode members. So yeah, there we are. We can only cross our fingers at this point. Cheers.
Yeah.
To good luck.
It's like no joke being a member of the Unicode Emoji Subcommittee. It is, an hour and a half each week, sometimes twice a week. It is a lot of documents. It's, emails. It's, agendas and action items. For me, emoji is like a side hobby run amok. I mean, the irony is emoji may be the single largest impact that they've had on the world, right? Because dumpling emoji, billions of keyboards impacted, like very, very few, a little bit of impact, but it's billions. If you multiply it out, that may be my biggest impact. And across, the hundreds of emoji characters. I mean, actually, one of the interesting things that I worked on that I am very proud of is I worked on the interracial couple emoji. So that took a lot of work because that actually, you needed a new mechanism to combine different people of different skin colors together. And it took many, many rounds. But I do think the affirmation that comes from having those little images on your phone it will be incredibly powerful. And I think that it will make people cry. And so, it's only every so often that you can do something that is powerful enough to make other people cry. And that's nice. So what you find is that in a way you have these, large U.S. multinational tech companies who control most of the emoji keyboards have this kind of interesting tension. So on one side, they have to be conservative and not rile anyone up, but at the same time, they have the ability to shift the conversation, and they do, have a certain agenda. So, for example, a couple years ago, Apple decided to add gay family emojis. So you have dad, dad, kid, kid, mom, mom, kid, kid. You also have single parents, and at least with the gay family emoji, like the Russian government liked that, like not at all, and threatened to ban Apple products. I mean, like because they considered it homosexual propaganda to youth, which is illegal in Russia. I think one of the most interesting examples of where you have a tension between large U.S. multinational tech companies and a community that wants a specific emoji is with the Tibetan flag. I think a lot of large commercial entities in the United States are very afraid of how, the Chinese government will react with a Tibetan flag emoji. So I'm going to guess you're going to see that nowhere soon. But by other standards, in another world where there are not commercial interests at play, a Tibetan flag probably could become an emoji.
Taya Uglow is also waiting with bated breath for the decision of the Unicode committee.
The fact that it might save lives or change lives, that's a reason to keep trying. But if it doesn't happen this time, we try next time and next time and next time. Because we think it is going to certainly save more lives than a wine glass. But I hate putting things side by side like that. I really genuinely didn't think it was, I just thought it was a thing which you could just like ask. So the very first time we did it, it literally went like this. It's a kind of language. Anyway, that's not how it's done. It's a very long and complicated document with reference guides and details. And when I say that it can save lives, I lived in the closet as for a very, very long time. And I always thought that, well, people shouldn't want to kill themselves because they're different, because they feel differently. And part of feeling differently is not understanding that lots of other people actually feel the same way as you. That you're not that different. You're just unusual, uncommon, special. So making it more obvious to people, especially young people, especially teenagers, especially children, actually, that the feelings in their body are fine. So I think that any step towards fixing that saves lives. We just don't have numbers because people don't leave notes. It seems silly that some pixels would save lives, but
we decided to surrender the freedom for convenience, predictability, and safety. Right? I want to be in the safe, walled garden of America online, rather than the scary Wild West of the real internet.
Media critic Douglas Rushkoff describes in his book how we, as Team Human, can preserve our humanity in a world of new technology, where tech companies have supreme powers.
If the world and one another, if we're scared enough, then yeah, I mean, maybe that's why they don't want to make a transgender flag, right? Because people are still scared of transgender and what that means. If transgender is accepted by the emoji universe, right? Then it means, well, what am I paying for? I thought I bought this phone and I'm paying to be safe from all those scary things, from my child not to see something like that. There's the compromise, in other words, that once you enter that world, You're compromising your freedom. You're compromising your liberty.
Yeah, it's me. I signed up to help test space.
Emojis are just the beginning. Think about Apple's Animojis, Samsung's Memojis, and Google's Playmoji. Our digital communication is getting more expressive, more visual, and more advanced.
The variety of human experience will be increasingly limited to what can be monetized. The corporation has no reason to give you a way of saying something that's not going to make them money one way or another. And and Facebook and Apple and Amazon and every one of these companies has already proven they don't mean to enhance our relationships with one another. They don't mean for us to spend time with each other. They want us to spend time on their devices, addicted to them. So how can we bring ourselves to believe that these are benevolent linguists creating a language for human flourishing? If language no longer is these words that we evolved as creatures, but instead we've decided that language is something that corporations will now design for us, and we fully accept that. Well, I guess you have to think about what would it have been like if the language we use was developed by companies, that words were copywritten and patented, so that every time you used a word, now I'm using Apple's word, now I'm using Amazon's word, now I'm using their word. It's just a different proprietary understanding of the world, of information, of communication.
I feel like it's more real because we're on Microsoft's campus. Right. They might just be running a little late from their meeting or something.
Well, was he on? No, because he was an independent member.
I just saw 2 people from Unicode there just now, so they're in here. They're around. Ah, good morning. Good morning. Oh,
hi.
Look at your ensemble. That's so cute.
Yeah, you look great.
Thank you. I like it.
To let you know, we have decided, we don't have anything concrete yet in terms of color and the white wine emoji, but we have decided the direction we want to go in.
Yeah.
We are reviewing if we will support a white wine emoji today. We're reviewing it today. We should know by tomorrow if that will be approved. Okay.
That's great.
All right. Tell them our emoji fingers are crossed. Okay. Bye, Lisa. I think they're giving us little tidbits of hope that keep us kind of on the emoji journey.
Because they're adding it's like adding a new letter to the keyboard,
the alphabet. It's
a new letter to the alphabet.
The best way to describe it, a new letter to the alphabet of the modern communication zeitgeist on digital, digitally on phones.
For the whole world.
These people control the pen.
I think it's great.
For this guy.
They make it appear to be democratic that everybody can submit their own emoji, while in fact they control the language.
Right, it's a totally controlled space. It's the same thing that happens to people on Facebook. It's like, oh, Facebook is free. You can have any kind of a profile you like, as long as it's one of these cookie cutter profiles. You can pick any books or any movies or any pop stars to represent who you are. It's like, well, what if that's not even the menu that I use to present who I am? You know what I mean? So it's we're accepting the conventions of this world as real by having such a stake in them. Our corporate stewards have not developed the internet with our best interests at heart, and I think some people are looking at the very least at some regulation as a way of reintroducing a civil human voice into this discourse.
Well, it does make more sense to have somebody who doesn't have a commercial interest but has an interest for the public be the one that controls it.
I don't know that you want anyone to be in the position where they have to decide for the world, which is more important, mate or menstruation. The Unicode committee apparently chose mate. Mate, I'm sure it's good. But I don't think you want anyone, whether it's a government or a corporation, to have to make that choice for the world, no matter what their interests are, whether it's it could be the most independent, public-spirited person in the world with no commercial interests who's just like the supreme judge. Still, I don't think you want to ask anyone to make that decision. I just don't think it's appropriate.
You have to remember that this is a kind of, has been born out of nothing. It's not a government organisation. It's not, I'm not sure whether I would want governments running this. I'm not sure whether I would want any particular one nationality running it. I certainly wouldn't want it to be a popular vote. I wouldn't want, because honestly, the internet can be a scary place, right? That there should be sort of some guardrails around, what language is, how language is.
But, I think we have to reckon with the fact that the libertarian idea of the internet that was the dream in the early 90s, the cypherpunk fantasy, it hasn't turned out so great in all respects. And so, the idea that there may need to be moderation or that someone has responsibility for this medium is definitely growing in sort of cultural, the cultural consciousness. Now, whether the people that control the medium should be the world's largest corporations, probably not. But should it be the world's largest governments? That doesn't sound so great either. So I think the world is really reckoning with this issue.
But then we're at an impasse, right? So it shouldn't be completely libertarian. It shouldn't be a government. It shouldn't be a big corporation.
Well, if you came here to the Stanford Computer Science Department, room 282, asking me to tell you how to solve the world's problems, I'm afraid you're going to have to be disappointed. I can tell you what I think about emoji, but I can't tell you I have the solution to the question of how to regulate the exchange of ideas on this global communications medium. I think that is something that a lot of people are talking about, and ideas are flowing, but I don't think we know.
What will the future after emojis bring? Will it be Unicode or our code? Do we go for ease of use, which means settling for pre-programmed formats? Or will mankind, Team Human, insist on the freedom to keep thinking outside the box?
The internet as an infrastructure is still open, and it's people who are choosing to use locked proprietary technologies on top of it. Some people might decide to break free and start using the real net. But we'll see. Most people prefer safety and convenience over creativity and wonder.
We need new heroes for another generation of language.
Hello.
Hi. Okay, so I have an update for you.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
There's no update.
Oh.
We didn't get to white wine today, and we might not get to it tomorrow. And if we don't get to it tomorrow, then we're not going to talk about it until October.
So we just heard from a contact at Unicode that they did not vote to approve the emoji today, that maybe there is a chance tomorrow, but that the agenda is so full that it might not actually get onto a yes or no answer at this meeting, actually, which is pretty frustrating for us.
And then it would likely get moved to October, which is kind of what we expected, but if it gets moved to October, they can't guarantee that would be part of 13.0, so it might go to 14.0, which means it won't hit phones until 2021. Ugh.
The white wine emoji has not been approved by the Unicode Consortium. They explain their decision by saying they fear it will create a precedent and open the door for rosé, different kinds of beer, and cocktails. After 4 attempts, the transgender flag finally made it onto the official list of candidates for new emojis. So it will be on the agenda again at the next Unicode meeting again, behind closed doors.
Thank you for watching. For more on this subject, take a look at the playlist. You can also watch this recommended video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and we'll keep you updated on our documentaries.